Welcome to Kicking Your Teen's Troubles to the Curb with host Kristina Nation, the ultimate guide for parents navigating the challenging yet rewarding journey of raising teenagers. Join your host Kristina as she dives deep into the world of adolescence, tackling everything from academic pressures and social dynamics to mental health and independence. So please, welcome the host of Kicking Your Teen's Troubles to the Curb, Kristina Nation.
Hello and welcome to Kick Your Teen's Troubles to the Curb. I'm your host, Kristina Nation, and we are streaming on Bold Brave TV. I am excited today to introduce to you my guest. My guest today is Eva Dwight, and she is a positive discipline trainer. So I'm super excited for our conversation. So after teaching English language arts for 12 years, Eva earned her master's degree in educational counseling and worked as a school counselor in Mesa, Arizona for 20 years. She is a certified positive discipline trainer and a parent educator coach. She also serves as co chair on the Positive Discipline Association Board of Directors. Eva has been married for 38 years, is the proud parent of two sons, and most recently has discovered the delights of grandparenting. Welcome, Eva.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here. I appreciate you having me on.
Yeah, it's been a while since we've connected, so I'm glad that we were able to again. And I'm excited that we are both embarking on the grandparenting journey as I just had
It's
my first granddaughter. Yay!
and I know, and it's just so delightful. It's such a different, I don't know about you, but for me, it's a lighter experience than being a parent because I loved being a parent. And so much of that, you feel the weight of every decision and you know, the outcome that you're trying to achieve with whatever moment you're having with your child. And with grandparenting, I get to just experience the joy and connection and really put all that I've learned in the last 30 years, because my older son, her dad is 30 years old. It's like a lot has happened in the research in 30 years. A lot have happened to my learning in 30 years. So now I get to put to use what I wish I would have known 30 years ago, just putting into play with her. And so just really having a delightful time. I hope you are too.
Oh, most definitely. And I absolutely agree. I was like, wow, just thinking of, like you said, how much has changed and how much we have learned in all
Mhm.
of this time, and just getting another chance to, contribute to raising another little person. I'm just so excited. And like you said, just so much lighter though. You don't feel like that weight and pressure of getting it all right.
Yes. That's her parents' job. They get to carry more of that weight. And it's fun to watch them having a delightful time with her too. And I had a delightful time being a mother and having those fun moments with my kids. I think parenting is the hardest job you'll ever do and the most joyful job that you can ever do. And so there's just like anything in life, there are challenges, but there's so much joy. And that's one of my goals with positive discipline is to help parents experience more of the joy, especially if they're not, helping them find it and grow it back.
Yes, and I love that, and that's why I'm excited to have you on the show. Is we do have all our years of positive discipline under our belts. We share that in common, and I just get excited about speaking about positive discipline, and because I know the difference it made in my family,
Mhm.
and which is why I've been so passionate about teaching it and again being able to implement it in for my granddaughter as well. So let's kind of kick things off and tell us, what is positive discipline and how can it help parents curb some of the most common teen troubles? Because I know you, like me, kind of specialize in working with parents of teens.
Right.
So how do we use positive discipline to kind of curb some of those common teen troubles?
So positive discipline is what we call an authoritative model. It's not authoritarian and it's not permissive. It's walking that line of kindness and firmness at the same time. So I tell parents, and I coach teachers as well in this work. But if I'm too far over on the firm side, I become an authoritarian, and it's my way or the highway, and do it because I said so, and do it the way you're supposed to do it. And I have good intentions when that's who I'm being. That I want the best for my child. So I absolutely don't want to disrespect people who are coming from that place because they want what's good for their child. And the problem with that modality is that we're not teaching the skills that kids need. So if I'm not there to tell you what to do, and there are consequences to learning to be obedient when they walk out there in the world, I don't necessarily want my child to be obedient to their peers when they're teenagers and somebody tells them to do something and it was wrong, but they feel the pressure and they do it anyway because they've learned to just kind of be pulled around by their nose. They can't think for themselves because I've done all their thinking for them. And so I don't want that. That's not helpful to them to be thriving adults in the world. And if I fall too over on the kind side, then I become permissive, and that becomes about conflict aversion. I don't want any conflict. I don't want any problems. Just do what you need to do. And I hope it's the right thing, but I just really want to be your friend. I just want everybody to be happy. And again, when my kids don't experience boundaries and expectations, they don't learn that they really feel the love, but they don't learn that they have a responsibility to the family, that they need to make a contribution to the group. And so they don't learn the skills that they need to make contribution and have responsibility out there in the world. And so when we talk positive discipline, that authoritative model helps us walk that line of kindness and firmness at the same time. And that can be really hard. And the hardest thing about it, I think, is that there's no one right answer for every situation. But what I appreciate about positive discipline is it gives us foundational principles and tools to stand in these principles. If I'm going to be kind and firm in this situation, what does that look like? What does it sound like? If I want to make sure that I am respectful to myself, to my child, and respecting the needs of the situation, what does that look like? What does that sound like? So if I want to be encouraging and help my child learn skills for the big picture instead of just solving the problem in the moment, what does that look like? What does it sound like? So it's a thinking method of parenting, and I may not always have the right answer or the answer in the moment. I may have to push pause and say, I need time to think. Let's push pause. Let's go calm down, whatever we need to do. I need to think about what's right here for me, and you think about what's right for you, child, and then let's come together and solve the problem together. So it's really a collaborative model where we are collaborating with our kids, hopefully from very young ages, so that by the time they're teenagers, they don't know anything different than we're having a problem. We need to talk. When can we sit down and talk? What are we going to figure out that we don't keep having this problem over and over again? And during that conversation, again, we consider what I need, what you need, and what the situation requires. And needs are different from wants. So I want to stay out until 2 a.m. If I'm the teenager, right? What do I need? Yeah, right. And so if I'm looking at the need and digging down through conversation, what we might figure out is that what you're really looking for is independence, social time with friends, an opportunity to be out there in the world. Well, I, the parent, need to make sure you're safe. I need to feel comfortable going to bed because I'm not staying up until 2 a.m. And that's not reasonable. And I'm not sure what's going on after midnight that you need to be a part of. So I need to understand more of that. And so together we can talk about how do you get a sense of independence and social time, and I get a sense of your safety, and we're respecting the needs of the situation, which means keeping you safe, keeping you legal, whatever's going on. So through that, we might agree that the boundary is midnight, or if it's going to be later, Where are you going to be? How will I know if you've changed places? What are some respectful ways of communicating if you decide to change your plan? So that gradually kids are figuring this out through a problem-solving, solution-building process. And that's what I appreciate so much about it, is that as we do this together, they're growing skills, we're building trust, and our relationship is stronger for it. So that's kind of a long-winded answer, but did that answer your question about what positive discipline is? It's
Yes,
not just a thing, it's a big thing.
yes, it is, and I love the answer that you gave, and I also love that you mentioned that sometimes it's not always easy figuring out. Because I know for me, you know, implementing positive discipline in my family, I was always trying to figure out, what is kind and firm at the same time look like
Right.
you had said, and sometimes it's not so super simple, especially when we get into the teen years, and especially if your teen is struggling. Like for me, I talk a lot about my daughter, and when she struggled as a teen, and sometimes, figuring out what kind and firm looks like, sounds like, when you're talking about some risky behaviors, when you're talking about struggles with depression, it can get a little tricky.
Mhm.
But so that's important to know that it's not always easy, and that's why, like for myself during that time, I did go to my friends and my mentors in
Mhm.
positive discipline for coaching.
Mhm.
So I love acknowledging that positive discipline is an amazing philosophy, and provides us with amazing tools to navigate the teen years. And it isn't always easy, and there is extra support out there when you need it.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely, and I think the programs that you offer parents are really incredible, and I do think adding mental illness into the mix, and or even just, you know, a neurodivergent brain, a child with ADD or some other issues that they are navigating because of their brain wiring, requires us to be creative and
Mhm.
and responsive and reflective. Not
Right.
just, "Oh, this is what you did, this is what happens next." Well, yeah, it takes a lot of conversation, and sometimes it takes multiple conversations, and we got this far in this conversation, but we're kind of on the edge, so let's push pause, think
Mhm.
about what we've talked about so far, let's come back and get to some problem solving here. So, a lot of this is it's a process, it's not a
Mhm.
90-second video on Instagram fix. Life is not like that, and I think sometimes we want that, but the reality is that's not what life is. So, those
Yeah.
foundational principles, we can teach our kids to stand in those principles too. How can they be kind and firm and respect the needs of the situation when they're making decisions with setting boundaries with other people, with, navigating their friendships and conflicts within their friendships and things like that? When we can teach them these tools, they are gonna be more successful out there in the world.
Yeah, and that's what I love about positive discipline too, is like you said, it helps teach those social and life skills that they
Mhm.
need to be successful out in the world. So
Right.
so important. Yeah. So let's talk about, sometimes teen behavior can kind of push us parents to the edge, right? It can get tricky in the teen years. So, how can positive discipline help parents respond instead of react? So, like you mentioned earlier, hitting the pause button, right? So, how can, we be more thoughtful in our response, and not just react?
And I want to give grace for parents who have, in the moment, reacted and then realized, "Okay, that wasn't helpful." Um,
Right.
I need a do-over, because how many times have I needed to say to my kids, "I didn't handle that moment very well. Can I have a do-over, please?" And I think kids are very forgiving of that, and it models for them what we want from them, because I want them to be able to say, "Hey, I kinda screwed that up, mom. I need a do-over." or I wasn't very polite to you. I was disrespectful. Can we try again? Because when we can do that with each other, we can flow as human beings, and that's all we are. So, in answer to your question, how do we respond rather than react? I think that takes a lot of practice, and you're not going to be perfect at it. And when something's happening in the moment, it can be just really helpful to take a deep breath, get some oxygen flowing to the brain, get the blood going there, and say, okay, I want to respond, not just react. And you can even say it out loud. Because again, I'm all about being transparent with our kids. Just model, say, I'm really trying to practice responding instead of reacting. So I'm going to take a deep breath. And then I need to hear from you what this was about. And then it's an opportunity to get curious. Can you tell me what was going on for you? Can you help me understand what your goal was? And I don't mean that we have to be careful with our tone there. It can't get snarky. Well, what were you thinking?
Right.
Right. And sometimes the reality is kids aren't thinking because their executive functioning system in their brain, that frontal lobe area, isn't fully developed yet. And they're caught up in the moment. And there's so much research that shows that, there's a driving statistic that I use when I'm teaching parenting classes, that the insurance companies did a study, and it said for every additional teen that you put in the car with a teen driver, you increase the risk of an accident by 100%.
Oh,
That's
wow.
incredible, right? And so the same thing happens when we put them in a room together. There's that energy and people thinking and being spontaneous, and you just kind of go along with the moment and oh, that's not what I planned to do. But I wasn't thinking, I was just going along. And that's a very natural thing for teenage human beings to do and for human beings to do. So if we can help them exercise the executive functioning system after the fact and say, so what was going on for you? What were you trying to achieve? What was your hope? Were you trying to connect? Were you feeling incapable? What was going on for you? Help me understand, and just listen. Don't argue. Don't point out the shortcomings of their thinking, because in the moment, they're probably looking back and saying, yeah, I wasn't thinking clearly about that. They already know it. We don't have to lecture them about it, but just really understanding and saying, so what do you think might work better the next time you're feeling those things and feeling the pressure of whatever situation? What might you do differently? And really help them process that. Now, there might be some mess to clean up. If the car got wrecked or something was broken, we need to make amends. We need to make restitution for whatever happened. If there was something legal, support them in following through with it, as scary as that might be. But with those little things like breaking curfew or, I don't know, cheating on a test or staying at I don't know, the things that kids come up with. I think because I can't name them all in the moment and everybody's unique. I just think processing with them in a really respectful, non-judgmental way can help. And we have a tool in positive discipline that I know you're familiar with. The people who are listening might not be. It's called the 4 mistaken goals of misbehavior. And these 4 goals stem from the need for belonging and significance. So positive discipline is based on the work of psychiatrist Alfred Adler, who was early 20th century psychiatrist when psychology was a really new field. And his belief was that human behavior is deeply motivated by our need to feel like we belong, that we matter, and that we have a responsibility and a contribution to make to the group that's valued. So when I feel like I matter and I'm valued, I tend to use really appropriate behavior that's useful to the group and useful to me. If I don't feel like I belong, if I somehow feel like I'm not being valued, then unconsciously I tend to revert to behaviors that are designed to get me what I'm missing. So belonging and significance can break down into 4 sub-goals of the need for attention. If I'm not getting it appropriately, I'm going to seek it in ways that just drive you crazy.
Right.
And I can do things to get more attention, especially like we think in the classroom, the class clown. He or she isn't looking for attention from the teacher. They're looking for attention from their peers. So we've got to
Right.
kind of parse that out and say, well, what are you trying to get from whom? Right now, the adult in the room doesn't matter, but I'm getting laughs from my peers, so this is a good thing because I need attention. Well, how can I help you get that in more appropriate ways? Maybe I got a
Right.
phone call from the teacher, your child's being the class clown. Then we need to have a conversation. What are you getting from this? How could you get it appropriately, and what would be the right timing for it? And the teacher could be included in that conversation. There's the need for power and autonomy. Every human being needs to feel powerful and capable of managing what's going on in the moment. So if I don't give my kids power in positive ways, choices, expectations, opportunities to make decisions for themselves, they'll take it in negative ways because their signal is, you're not giving me enough power, I'm going to take it. Ooh, so there's another conversation. And I tell my younger son, I can always tell. And I say, I think I stepped on your power and I'm sorry. He always, I can feel the pushback when I've
Yeah.
stepped in too far. He's 28 years old. I can still get too much into his stuff and I get, Mom, I say, okay, I'm
Yeah.
sorry. I stepped on your power. Let me backtrack here. The need for a sense of justice, of fairness. If I don't feel like I've been treated respectfully or something's not fair, then I probably might lash out against the other person. And so I might have inadvertently offended my child or disrespected them. And I didn't do it intentionally, but they're feeling it. And so they lash back with disrespectful language or, doing something that they know is going to bother me because they're sending the signal. Yeah, you disrespected me. I'm going to disrespect you back.
Right.
And we know that the saying, hurt people hurt people.
Mm-hmm.
And so I feel hurt, so I'm going to hurt back. And then the fourth goal is about feelings of capability. So we need appropriate attention, appropriate power, a sense of fairness and justice, and we need to feel capable. So sometimes kids don't do, or they do in a way that's not appropriate because they don't feel capable of being successful at whatever the expectation is. And so sometimes that can mask itself as power, especially with teens. Like my whole career was junior high, teaching and counseling, and the teachers would send me kids who were being defiant. So the perception of the adult is, this is about power. But when you get into conversation, what it comes down to is, I don't think I can do this, and I'm not about to let anybody else in the room know that I can't do this.
Right.
So again, the class clown could be about getting attention, but it could be about deflecting. Because when I'm getting laughs, nobody's paying attention to the fact that I don't know how to do what you're telling me to do. Or with parents, it can show up as, I don't think I can meet your expectations, so I'm not even going to try because you're just going to criticize me and it's never going to be good enough. So the big picture here in responding to behavior is recognizing that the behavior is only like the tip of the iceberg poking out of the water. It's what we see and what we hear, but what it's pointing to is the bigger piece of the iceberg, which is the largest piece is beneath the surface. So we need to get curious about what is it that's motivating the behavior, the part that I see and hear. And we do that through conversation and figuring it out. So if I just react to the behavior by issuing a consequence and I haven't addressed the need, then what likely happens is the child escalates and it intensifies the behavior. So I escalate the consequence. So they escalate. And I get parents who say, I boxed myself into a corner. I've taken everything away. I've taken the door off their room. I've done this, I've done that. And I'm still getting the behavior. And my kid hates me. What's wrong? It's because right. And it's because we didn't address the need. So I want to be clear, there's not always a mistaken goal. Sometimes people behave because they are hungry, and low blood sugar causes us to be snappy or irritable or whatever. Hungry, angry, lonely, or tired. HALT, I think, is the acronym that we use for that. Is my child hungry, angry, lonely, or tired? Because when I'm really tired, I have a short fuse. When I'm really hungry, man, I get snappy at people. So if it's not a mistaken goal and it is hungry, angry, lonely, or tired, well, still, we're pointing to a need that's being expressed by the behavior. I need food. I need rest. I need somebody to help me feel better, whatever it is. So I think we can really respond by taking a step back and saying, I wonder what this is about, and then engaging in conversation about it with our child. Does that make sense?
Yes. Wonderfully. You put that so beautifully. I love how you explain the mistaken goals. And like you said, it just really comes down to figuring out what that unmet need is. And we can do that by getting curious. So
Right.
yes, I love that. Yeah. So another tool in positive discipline or philosophy is we talk a lot about connection before correction. And so I'd love for you to explain a little bit why that's so important, especially in the teen years, to connect before correct, and how we can make time for that. I know
Mm.
I know sometimes, when the kids get older, we get busier, their schedules are busier, and it can get a little harder to make that time. Or a lot parents tell me, my teen doesn't want to spend time with me.
Mm.
So I'd love to hear your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I think that's another really big picture without an easy answer. It's a multi-layered answer, just like everything I think about life is. But if we start with the assumption and the myth that our kids don't want to be with us, that they only want to be with their friends, it really is a myth. The research says otherwise. And my personal experience says otherwise too. I can't tell you how many kids I met with in junior high who would tell me, I just want to have a meal with my parents. My friend sits down to dinner every night with their parents, but we're coming and going so much. All I want to do is just sit down and be together. Why can't we do that in my family? Kids want connection with us, and if we've broken the connection, then there's no framework on which to lay the correction. The connection is the plate on which we put everything else. And so, if you're feeling like you've lost connection, I think it's important to brainstorm with your child. Again, I just really feel like we've grown apart. We're getting in power struggles a lot. We don't seem to really spend much time together, and we don't need a lot, but I would like to have more time with you. What could that look like? Even if it's a couple meals a week, because everybody's schedule is so busy. And I know we had 2 children. Some people have many more, and you've got all these activities going on, and one parent's driving this one here and one parent's driving that one there, and life is busy. And yet, how do we find time to connect? So this could be breakfast together if dinner doesn't work out. It could mean weekend time to have, just a couple hours to play together. Let's go play a board game. Let's go out and do something physical together, something we like to do, and really let the child take the lead on that. What do you think is fun that I could join in with? Sometimes it might even start with, I want to play video games. Well, I'm
Right?
not like they got their first game system when they were 5, and it was Mario Brothers, and it's like within about 3 months, I couldn't beat either one of them. So it's like, well, this isn't fun to lose all the time, but I did it anyway because it wasn't right. It was time together doing what they wanted. But at this stage, by high school or junior high, you might just say, can I just sit on the couch and be with you while you play video games? Or let's watch a movie together. And even if we don't talk very much, women tend to be more verbal in their interactions, and connecting for us tends to be more verbal. Not every woman is like that, but a lot of us are. And in general, guys tend to be less verbal. And so what can we do together or side by side so that we are able to connect? Even homework table. Okay, we all did our homework, like the table I'm sitting at has seen so many years of homework together, and I always had, I was a teacher, a counselor, I always had work to do too. So I can sit here and do what I need to do at the table while they're doing their work, and then I can lean over and say, "Do you need help with that?" Or, "Wow, what are you working on?" Or, by the time they were so tired and then they had to read a chapter from the geography book or whatever, we just sit on the couch and take turns reading paragraphs or pages. So so that homework time is great time to connect, have little bits of conversation, help them keep on track, and you're just together in the same room. So I think you can be creative about how you do that. and just really read your kids' signals, because I think when we give them that time, start giving them what works for them most, and then gradually say, you know what, it would be fun for me if we could, whatever. Would you be willing to try that? And I think they would be more willing to try that if we've come their way and engaged with them in what's interesting for them. So then it can be a back and forth, and we can start to establish patterns. And it's those daily, weekly moments and little snatches that build the foundation so that when we do have a problem, we're here. We're not here. And when we're here, we can say, hey, I think we're having a problem with X. What ideas do you have for solving the problem? But if we're here, we're here, we can't do that. They won't be willing. And so I think when there are problems, what we need to look back to is, okay, what's going on in the relationship? We need to repair the relationship before we can move forward. And sometimes parents are like, but that takes too long. If you start, it will happen. And then when you find yourself here, everything will be better.
Yes, I would love to talk more a little bit about how to make some repairs. We do need to take a quick sponsor break, so we're going to do that real quick. So you are watching Kick Your Teens Troubles to the Curb. I'm your host, Kristina Nation, and with me today is Eva Dwight, and we will be right back right after the sponsor break.
Mike Zorek, a three-time California state champion in Greco-Roman wrestling at 114 pounds. Mike, blind since birth, was born in Hartford, Connecticut. He was a six-time national placer, including 2 seconds, 2/3, and 2/4. He also won the Veterans Folk-Style Wrestling twice at 152 pounds. In all these tournaments, he was the only blind competitor. Nancy Zorek, a creative spirit whose talents have taken her to the stage and into galleries and exhibitions in several states. Her father, a commercial artist who shared his instruments with his daughter and helped her fine-tune her natural abilities, influenced her decision to follow in his footsteps. Ms. Zorek has enjoyed a fruitful career doing what she loves. Listen Saturday mornings at 12 Eastern for the Nancy and Mike Show for heartwarming stories and interesting talk on the BBM Global Network.
Are you struggling to care for elderly parents or a spouse? Do you wonder if being a caregiver is making you sick? Are you worried about taking time off work to care for elderly parents and balance work, life, and caregiving? Has caregiving become exhausting and emotionally draining? Are you an aging adult who wants to remain independent, but you're not sure how? I'm Pamela D. Wilson. Join me for the Caring Generation radio show for caregivers and aging adults, Wednesday evenings, 6 Pacific, 7 Mountain, 8 Central, and 9 Eastern, where I answer these questions and share tips for managing stress, family relationships, health, well-being, and more. Podcasts and transcripts of The Caring Generation are on my website, PamelaDWilson.com, plus my caregiving library, online caregiver support programs, and programs for corporations interested in supporting working caregivers. Help, hope, and support for caregivers is here on The Caring Generation and PamelaDWilson.com.
Hello, and welcome back to Kick Your Teens Troubles to the Curb. I'm your host, Kristina Nation, and with me today is Eva Dwight, and we've been having a wonderful conversation about how how to parent teens with positive discipline. And right before the break, we were talking about how we can, really focus on that connection in the teen years. And what I love about what Eva said is how that it's completely a myth if we think our teen doesn't want to spend time with us. That our teens truly do seek and want that connection with us. It's just a matter of figuring out what that looks like, meeting them on their terms and figuring that out and looking for ways. And it can be so busy during the teen years, but it doesn't have to be a lot of time. It could be that quality time. So just getting creative and figuring out how we can connect. And now I'd like to discuss a little bit about, what happens if there has been a disconnect? What if, you know, there's, some way that we need to make repair, or we're having a lot of, our teen is really being defiant. We're having a lot of power struggles where, how can we use positive discipline um, to navigate when the connection has been broken, and how can we make those repairs?
Well, I always want to be clear that if things are really in a state where you feel like things are kind of a jumbled mess and you need help, reaching out for parent coaching, family therapy, I think those are really important tools to access. And if there are mental health issues for you or your child, I think working with their psychiatrist, their therapist, other medical and mental health professionals can be really, really helpful, because sometimes, especially when there are mental health issues at work, our children aren't always in control of their thought processes. And so that doesn't mean we are lenient and let them just get away with it because they're depressed or whatever. That's not what I'm talking about. But the brain wiring is not what it needs to be in the moment. And just working with medical professionals can be helpful and in building skills. And so sometimes we need an outside set of eyes to look, because we're too in it. We can't see it, and neither can our kids. So having that other set of eyes out there to say, well, here's what I notice, here's what might help, whether it's medication related or just therapeutic conversation related. There are lots of tools out there, and I think we've gotten better through COVID. If we could say there have been gifts from the COVID experience, is that I think awareness of mental health issues has really risen to the surface, and our willingness to discuss them as a society and normalize them has really gotten better, even just since 2020. And so I know it can be scary to ask for outside help, and I think it can be really helpful. And
Right.
within the family, within the family, what can we do? Um, as I said before, I'm really about being transparent with our kids and saying, I don't know how to do this because I have never been a parent of a 14-year-old, 16-year-old, 17-year-old. I've never been through this situation before, so I'm not sure what to do. And I just think admitting that is the first step toward making repairs, because your kid's never been 14 or 16 or 17 or whatever either, and they're navigating a lot of challenges in their life. So starting with that conversation and saying, I don't understand what's going on with you, but I would like to. And I would really like you to understand what's happening for me. But you go first. Tell me. And they
Right.
have to be able to trust us, right? So taking baby steps. We're not going to go from disconnected to super connected overnight. It's just not going to happen. We didn't get here overnight. And we have to take baby steps toward going back together again. So I think starting with curiosity, like we said, making amends for a mistake. I didn't handle that wrong. I didn't handle that well. I did this when I should have that. I yelled at you when I should have calmed down before we talked. I'm going to try to do better. Next time I'm feeling angry or anxious, I'm going to just take a step out of the room and calm down first. And I give you permission to let me know if I've been disrespectful and I need to step out of the room. Here's the signal we can give to each other. Here's the safe word we're going to use with each other. So we know that means either I'm recognizing it in you or you're recognizing it in me, and we can say safe word, whatever it is. And then we know, oh, that's my signal. We need to separate a little bit and go calm down. And then can we come back together and talk about how we do better next time? And I think you have to follow through on that. Step by step by step. And then again, if you didn't follow through, say, I didn't follow through on our agreement. I dropped the ball.
Right.
Let's get back on it. I have to model for them what I want from them. And I've got to do that a lot, because I guess I would ask adults to think about, if you work for somebody who's been a certain way for a long time, and they've either been maybe super permissive boss or authoritarian boss, or just wacky boss that you can't figure out, but you've figured out your own coping strategies for working with that boss. And then they walk in the door one day and said, oh, I'm going to do this now. I've heard of positive discipline and empowering people in the workplace, and I'm going to do this now. So they say that. Do you believe them right away? Like, what's that about? Right. And then they start to use some of those behaviors, but then a stressful moment comes up and they go right back to being who they were. Well, if that's your parent, you're not going to trust the new behavior right away. And so people want to say, oh, I learned about this positive discipline stuff. I'm going to go do this. And they try a tool and it falls flat. I think the child is pushing back and they're like, well, that didn't work. That's because kids don't trust the new behavior yet. So it's really important that just as you would need to see from your boss lots and lots and lots of examples of them really following through with these new behaviors they said they were going to do, or you don't trust it. Same thing with our kids. So we have to say, okay, I tried this, it fell flat. I'm going to keep trying it, and I'm going to keep having those conversations, and we are going to figure this out together. Gradually, you'll start to see a little bit of this happening, and gradually you'll get more here. But you got to trust the process. And I think teaching kids the process can be really helpful too, so that we're all working.
Yeah.
Can I mention positive discipline tool cards right now? Would that be okay?
Yeah.
So I think, and I have this handy, I don't know if people who are watching can see, but this is a deck of positive discipline parenting tools. So most of us were raised to think we had two tools, punishment and rewards. I'm going to punish you into doing what I want you to do, or I'm going to reward you into doing what I want you to do. But the research around punishment and rewards is that it's not really motivating. It's not really shifting the internal sense of who we are. But positive discipline gives us 52 tools, and every single one of these has a different tool with an explanation of how to use it. So I think it can be really helpful. Oh, look, the first one I pulled up was connection before correction. And if you don't want the hard copy, you can get, this is an app on your phone for $2.99. You can go to your app store and look up positive discipline parenting tools so you can carry these with you. But I just really recommend saying, okay, we got this set of tools, and you can buy the hard copy if you like the tactile handheld ones at positivediscipline.com. They're $15 a deck or something. But you can do this with your child and say, okay, we're going to practice one tool a week. This one is connection before correction. So let's read what it says. Creating a connection before correction is a great example of kindness and firmness. And then it gives you some examples of how to do that. So we could talk to our kid about how are we going to connect with each other. So when we need to correct each other, notice the each other, you can correct me too if I mess up, right? How can we practice this week? What does it look like? What does it sound like? Let's really identify that. And then let's follow through and come back next week and talk about how we did. And if we felt short, what can we do differently? And then each week we could add another tool to our parenting and humaning tool belt. And so they're really a great tool for helping us come back to the connection if we're doing it with our kids, not to our kids.
Yes, I love that. Yes, I love the 52 tools, and practicing once a week, I think, is the greatest way to really practice positive discipline and make that shift and utilize the tools and really implement them. So wonderful. So you kind of touched on this a little bit, but how can parents create clear boundaries and consequences without using yelling, threats, or punishment?
Well, we just need to remember we do not have to yell in order to be effective. And again, I'll use the boss example. If your boss yells at you because you made a mistake or gets in that authoritarian, you have to do it this way. I mean, what's your reaction to that? Mine is, I'll just sit quietly while you yell at me and then I'll go do what I need to do. Right? Or maybe I'll follow the rules because I don't want to get in trouble and I need my paycheck and blah, blah, blah. But, I don't really believe in you or what you're saying. So I think that when we are setting boundaries, it's important to have conversation about it.
Mm-hmm.
This is the boundary, like we were talking about, curfew. Really, midnight is my limit. And I really need you back by midnight so I can go to bed and know that you're safe. And
Mm-hmm.
if you come in late, we've got to talk about what's going to happen next time. So positive discipline doesn't mean there are no consequences. It just means that we recognize that every solution is a consequence. If we had a problem, we needed to create a solution, and a consequence is just the result of something that happened. So you did X, we had a conversation, we agreed on this solution. That's a consequence to the behavior that you used. But not every solution is a consequence, but not every consequence is a solution. And I credit Jody McVitie, who is one of our former positive discipline lead trainers, with that quote. I'm going to say it again. Every solution is a consequence, but not every consequence is a solution. So if I try to say, next time you try to come in after midnight, I'm going to lock the door and you can't get in the house, or I'm going to forbid you from going out next week. And then you probably want to sneak out the window. And again, I could start escalating this. But I think consequences, when we look at them, we need to look through the lens of solutions. Solutions are related to the problem. They're respectful to everyone. They're reasonable, meaning we think we can do it, and they're helpful in solving the problem. So if something's broken, how are you going to earn the money to pay for it? If you're going to misuse my car, I won't let you drive my car. If you need to go to this fun thing, and we agreed that your chores would be done or your bedroom would be clean or whatever before you go, I won't take you there until the job is done, and follow through on that. So the consequence for you not following through, child, is that you don't get to go to your fun event as early as you wanted to. As soon as it's done, you can go. I'm not here to hold you back the whole night. Go get it done. So I think that the logic of this needs to be there. I don't need to punish you for a whole week for making an infraction if we can fix it and create a solution for moving forward. So I just think consequences are kind of a gray area, because there needs to be that direct line between what you did and what the expectation was. And as soon as the expectation is met, go on with your life, whatever. And solutions are for when we keep having a repeated problem that we just really need to address, because it seems like all the time you're mad at me because I'm not taking to your happy event because you're not getting your room cleaned on time. What would work for you? What structures could we put in place so that your chores are done before this time when you want to leave? So do you need more structure? Do you need more support? So again, kids with their lack of frontal lobe development, I used to tell my junior high parents, they're only half baked. You can't take them out of the oven yet. I like to bake, and if you take a cake out of the oven before it's done, instead of being flat, it'll go poop in the middle. And we know that the executive functioning system for young men isn't finished really developing and tweaking itself. We're developing neural connections throughout the lifespan, but the brain isn't really fully developed until the mid to late 20s. For girls, it's a little earlier, the early to mid 20s. But if they're 14, 15 years old, they're still in that process, and they may not have the structure for organizing the homework process or organizing the chore process or whatever. So let's create a structure. Let's create a routine. Let's post the routine so that all you have to do is check off when it's done. And I don't have to come nagging you about it. When the boxes are checked, I can take you where you want to go, or you can turn on the TV, or you can whatever. So putting structure in place, I think, is really foundational when we talk about the consequence of your behavior. We've talked about it in advance. If this doesn't happen or this happens, then that happens. It's logical. It makes sense. And then solutions are for those bigger repeat problems. Does that make sense?
Yeah, definitely. And so, and I've always appreciated the collaborative problem solving, and like you are describing, which is merely a conversation, right? Where you do get curious and you do, hear from your teen what is going on from them, and what is it that they need and what are they struggling with, and then work together to come up with a solution. And like you said, just being focused on solutions, and that's the shift, right? That's the big shift for positive discipline, is in switching that thinking from what consequence can I dole out to change this behavior to what is a solution we can work towards that's going to help improve the circumstance for both parties, being mutually respectful, everyone's needs being met, and just having that conversation. And sometimes you do need to go back to the drawing board a couple of times, right? Like when we talk about family meetings, we often came back to a family meeting with chores. That was, it, we
It's
would
kind of a
come up,
recurring thing in families.
right? Exactly. So sometimes you need to come back and come up with a new solution, try something different. But it's having that conversation and, knowing that mistakes are going to happen, and how can you help them process those mistakes and learn from those mistakes, rather than just doling out the huge lecture and the and the punishment, right? So yeah, I love that. Let's see. So, I guess since we're talking about mistakes, let's look at the other side, and what is a common mistake that parents make while trying to use positive discipline, and how can they turn it around?
Mm. I think I've kind of alluded to this already. I think the most common mistake people make is expecting there to be a magic wand. Like they're just looking for that one 90-second Instagram video or that one program that will help me go, boop, everything's fixed. And life isn't like that. We've grown so impatient with the growth of technology and our ability to have immediate gratification for a lot of things. There is no such thing on the parenting journey. And our children are on their journey too. They're learning and growing. Like I said, they've never experienced this part of their lives before. So everything is new, different. They've got skills from the other experiences they've had at earlier ages, and hopefully we can help them put those into place. And so I think when we think big picture, and a lot of people will say, well, I tried this and it didn't work, so I'm going to go back to who I was. Well, back to who you were wasn't working. That's why you were seeking out this other thing. So I would say, trust the process, work the tools, and think about the big picture. And so a lot of times when we talk about, you said, sometimes we have to come back to the drawing board. We tried a solution, it didn't work. We got to talk about it again. Let's try this one. Oh, that didn't work either. Let's try this one. Parents like, well, this takes too long. Well, learning takes time. Sometimes we get it right away, but I will ask parents, so when you have a problem, how many times have you come up with what you thought was the solution and you tried it and it didn't work? Did you take away your own cell phone for a week?
Right?
Did you stay home and not allowed yourself to go out with friends for 2 weeks? What did you do to yourself? That's ridiculous. Of course it is. What did you do? Well, I went back and figured out what else to try. Okay. Yeah. So why are kids any different? And what skills are we growing? If we teach them, you may not come up with the right solution all at once. But if you come back and collaborate, because one brain is better than many, or many brains are better than one. So I always do better. I come up with a better solution when I've asked other people for input. And so if you have to keep coming back to the drawing board and saying, okay, what else could we try? Let's try this. What skills are we building over time? We're skills, respectful communication skills, creative thinking and critical thinking. What didn't work about what you tried? Why didn't it work? Okay, that gives you a clue to what we need more or less of, right? So we're building all these skills, which are actually executive functioning skills. So we're just really honing those the neural wiring for our kids so that they can go out in the world and be creative, resourceful, respectful human beings. And
I love that. And I love what you said, trust the process and use the tools, right? So we are coming to an end of our show, and I just want to give you a chance to let our audience know how they can learn more about your work and what you're offering.
Well, I have 2 offerings right now that are free, so I hope people will take advantage of that. And Kristina, I don't know how this works. If you post a flyer on the podcast, or if you go to my website evadwight.com and look at the workshops and other offerings on there, you'll see these. So the first thing is I'm collaborating with positive discipline lead trainer Dodie Blomberg, and once a month, first Saturdays, starting on June 7th, I think is our first one at, I believe we decided at 10 a.m. Eastern time. No, 10 a.m. Pacific time. Sorry, we're on Pacific time at our end of the country. Details are on my website. So from 10 to 11, every first Saturday of the month, any parent, doesn't matter how old your children are, doesn't matter, where you live, because it's online, it's on Zoom, you can come together in community, and we can talk about positive discipline and the challenges you're experiencing and how to help you move forward, starting to practice positive discipline in a community with other parents who are struggling with a lot of the same things that you are. So I hope you'll take advantage of that. And then the other thing that I'm offering to any school or any agency that works with parents and families is up to 5 free hours of professional development. So if you're a school and you would like 5 free hours of professional development, I know a lot of schools are planning their fall professional development for this coming year. If you would like to learn more about positive discipline, I will pull from the classroom program to give teachers skills for starting to implement these tools. If you work with an agency that works with parents and families, we'll pull from the parenting program, and I'll put together a set of activities that you can go out and use with the parents that you work with so that you can start to see and spread the power of positive discipline. So I hope people will take advantage of those 2 free programs, and then you'll see other programs on my website, evadwight.com, that I also hope people will sign up for.
Wonderful. Thank you. And also, if you have enjoyed listening to the different tools that we've talked about today, you can find a lot of those tools and how I specifically use those tools to help my daughter and support her when she was struggling with depression as a teen. In my book, The Power of Everyday Grace, Parenting Teens with Depression, which is available on Amazon. So thank you so much for being here, Eva. It's been wonderful, and we'll see you all next week. Thank you.
Thanks for having me. It's been fun.
This has been Kicking Your Teens' Troubles to the Curb with host Kristina Nation. Tune in each week as Kristina features expert interviews, real-life stories, and practical strategies that empower parents to connect with their teens and effectively address their struggles. Here, Tuesdays, 11 a.m. Eastern, on the Bold Brave TV network, powered by B2 Studios.